X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach, and Adam, how are you on this beautiful, beautiful evening?
I am good. I am still sort of basking in the glow of the news from Entertainment Weekly of Jonathan Hickman.
Oh, yeah, wait. Yeah, the big Marvel exit, Chip Zdarsky being done with Daredevil. But not really being done with Daredevil.
He's not really done with Daredevil. Yes, there seems to be the Substack exodus for some, and
it's
for others.
Listen. Okay, hold on, listen, because we're going to address this here and now because I am sick and tired of people hearing it. There's plenty of stuff about there's plenty of stuff about Substack and the people that they have previously given deals to that can and should be criticized. I absolutely and 100% support anyone who wants to criticize that because it's valid criticism.
Oh, yeah.
On the very, very specific angle of Substack and comics creators, there are two things that people need to keep in mind. One, as of recording, the only person to say, yeah, I've quit some comics because of the Substack deal has been James Tynion IV, who also has two incredibly well-selling, like bonkers well-selling comics that he owns, that are creator-owned, that he's running with regardless, and he's still doing multiple books with DC. He just said, hey, Batman's a little much for me. By the way, James Tynion IV has been writing Batman for darn near 10 years straight now. So even though I like his current run on The Dark Knight, I get it. If he's like, if one thing has to drop, it's Batman. Dude's written several Batsmans. Second thing. Number two, as of recording tonight, Substack has not published a single comic. So I'm less.
We have to get there first.
So I am somehow not worried about all of these people leaving their current day job, even for great contracts, where they have not produced a single thing.
Any content, right? No, I hear you. And I believe that we are in good hands with the X Office, and I'm sure we will see Hickman again. I am not worried about that.
Yeah. We said we weren't going to talk. That was a joke about the Zdarsky thing. Hickman also announced that he is no longer doing monthly X-Men comics today and is stepping away for some time from the line, which is fine because he said,
he really hasn't
hey, look,
been doing it for a while.
yeah, he's not put out a lot of X-Men comics, and now he's just formalizing it, folks.
Yep. Now, Zach, we have some unfinished business that we have to attend to because, as we noted on social media, we hecked up a couple episodes ago.
We did, and we would have resolved this sooner, but we had the earth-shattering interview with Leah Williams that had to go in before then.
That's right.
So this whole episode, just to take it back to the bit at the beginning before we got distracted by stacks of subs, is actually a Daredevil adjacent episode.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But on our last episode, last regular episode, we ranked Uncanny X-Men 201 Duel, and we had already ranked it.
Yes.
I had forgotten because I have a bad memory, and Adam forgot because he wasn't on that episode.
Right. So, Uncanny X-Men 201 Duel had already been ranked at 28. Now, when you and I talked about it, we plunked it in here at 46. So, interesting difference there, and shows how arbitrary and subjective some of these rankings can be. But we are going to stick with...
It was 17 spots. I feel like we did pretty good.
Yeah, it's
17
not like
spots is a pretty decent margin.
It's not crazy, but we are going to delete the 46 ranking, correct?
We are. We are not going to have that 46 ranking, and instead we are going to replace it with a alternate story from that list. Yeah, by the way, 17% on our list. We got within 3% of our original ranking.
That's pretty good.
So I feel like we did pretty good. Like if we would have thought any more, we would have realized 2 weeks ago that we hecked up instead of after the episode was edited and posted. But no, we are going to cover a story that was an alternate for that episode and didn't make it, but is still a good one. That is Uncanny X-Men 204. And we will get to the real, or the bulk of this episode later, the Daredevil parts. But this is What Happened to Nightcrawler, written by Chris Claremont, pencils by June Brigman, with inks by Will Portasio, and colors by Glennis Oliver. Tom Morzakowski, he does those letters, baby.
Yeah.
He's so good.
And this is an interesting one because we did not see Nightcrawler in some of the other issues around this with the Secret Wars stuff. And this issue is still sort of a Secret Wars, at least adjacent, because Nightcrawler is having this crisis of faith because the Beyonder is so godlike, and he's like, well, what does this mean for me and my religion, and blah 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 blah. That part, it's not really all that interesting. What is interesting is that Nightcrawler, being mopey and sending Amanda Sefton on her way, manages to get involved rescuing a stranger from Arcade. So we have a Nightcrawler
do you know
versus...
how he gets involved in this?
I absolutely love this detail. So Zach, tell him how he realizes that someone has been abducted by Arcade.
He hears Arcade's skleplunk, kind of trash machine noise.
Yeah, what is it? Sflang.
It's flang. Excuse me. He hears that telltale sflang. And then he's like, that must be Arcade's flang.
It's pretty funny. Now, the person who has been abducted here is an anonymous woman who just was out exercising. We learn at the end of this issue that she's actually royalty. Bit of a reveal at the end. She is Judith Rassendil, last of the Elfbergs, Queen of Ruritania.
This is a reference to some fantasy book that Chris Claremont liked, to be clear.
Not shocking. Yeah. So, this, especially with June Brigman's artwork here, it feels a lot like a classic X-Men backup story, doesn't it?
Yeah, it super does. And I like Brigman's artwork here. I think Brigman does a great job.
It's fantastic.
It's not Jazzy John Romita Jr.
Yeah, it really feels like a break. And it does kind of, except in some places where you can really see Will Portasio kind of like doing his thing over top of the pencils. It actually feels like a John Bolton-esque, kind of story that you might see at the back of a classic X-Men story. That is to say, not much actually happens here, right?
No, not much. It's a brief story. It's fun. It's not the best Nightcrawler has adventure stories, but it's like still good.
Oh yeah, it's a fun little Nightcrawler story. I think it gives some fun little arcade moments here, which I like. And kind of gives this idea of like what Murder World could be. Like this idea of, it's actually kind of a precursor to what we see Spiral do with the Body Shop. Like they're tempting this abductee with like, potential ways that the Murder World could make you look and things like that. But overall, it's Kurt. He rescues the woman and we learn who she is. Fun fact, it's the same princess. I didn't realize this until I read this and looked her up on the wiki, but it's the same princess who gets married in Mojo Mayhem, which I had never made that connection before. So that's about it. It's fun. It's light, but it's a good time for Nightcrawler. I certainly don't think it's as good as the dual issue that we just took the duplicate out. So why don't we rank this on our big old list?
Yeah, we do have a big old list. Right now, we should have this. This is 539 stories on the list. That is not divisible by 3 because of our hiccup, though by the end of this episode, we will be back to being divisible by 3. Number 1 story on our list is Hoxpox. The 100th story on our list is X-Force, Volume 3, 1-6, Angels and Demons. Number 200 on our list is Power Pack 20. Number 300 on our list is Marvel Fanfare 1-4, The Savage Land Story. Number 400 on our list is the Muir Island Saga. Number 500 on our list is Excalibur 1-4, Forging the Sword. That is Excalibur Volume 3, by the way. That's the Chris Claremont Excalibur from the mid-2000s.
Oof.
After M-Day.
Real bad.
And then the Draco's at the bottom of the list. Where's that one arcade story? What arcade stories do we have on this? Because we have a couple.
Well, I think we have his original appearance pretty high, and then lower on the list we have his encounter with Shatterstar and Adam X the Extreme, right?
Okay, where's that one? Where's that one at? Because that's
hold on.
X-Force 29 and 30.
Let's find that.
Okay, that's at 375. This is probably better than that time that Adam X the Extreme is back and things have never been deadlier.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're probably closer to maybe something like God's Country at 286.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah. I think it's a fun little solo
This is probably
outing.
better than God's Country, right?
Yeah, I would
This
agree.
is probably better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, but 272 is X-Men Black Mojo, number 1. And I think I like that better than this.
Yeah, I can agree with that. That's a really nice character portrait and gives Glob something to do
Here's the
too.
thing. There's better Nightcrawler stories and there's better arcade stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one's just in the middle of a time everybody remembers, and I think got printed in some things.
Yeah.
Like early reprints.
But I do think it's probably, well, I don't know if it's better than Uncanny X-Men 300 at 273.
You don't think it's better? Yeah, I'm fine with that. What's volume 333 is... Oh, no, the time when Kitty and Ileana fight monsters on a monster island is better than this. That's at 274.
Yeah.
It's probably better than A Song of Mourning, A Cry of Joy.
I would agree with that.
The Threnody story.
Yeah, so this is going to...
At 275?
This would be our new 275?
It would be. Our new 275 is Uncanny X-Men 204, Nightcrawler versus Arcade.
Nice. All right, so you said before that this episode is actually, even though we just gave some bonus content there, this is a Daredevil-themed episode? What the heck does Daredevil have to do with the X-Men? I don't think they cross over that much.
See, they don't, which made this fun. But you do have to understand that Matt Murdock, the Daredevil, is a Marvel character. And the X-Men were very popular in the 80s, and they have crossed over with Marvel characters many times since.
Yeah.
It happened to be that in the 80s, Daredevil and X-Men and Thor were kind of the best they ever were. All at the same time, kind of.
Absolutely. And this first arc that we're going to talk about is actually a Daredevil arc, but it features a guest appearance from Wolverine and the first appearance of a pretty prominent X-Men villain and Wolverine villain, Lady Deathstrike.
Yeah, Yuriko is in this, though not in her Lady Deathstrike form. That doesn't come until later, until the Wounded Wolf story. And we're doing this because this story was requested by Marty. Marty went over to patreon.com/ I wanted to say Battle of the Atom, but no, it's ComicsXF. Went over to patreon.com/ ComicsXF, reached deep into his heart and in his pocketbook, and tossed a couple of coins in our coffers, just so we would talk about Daredevil 196 to 199. if you want to be like Marty and get a story on this list, even a weird one where we do an episode about stories we likely would not have talked about, like this, go on over. There's other reward tiers too, and if you don't want to give us like monies for stories, you can give us money for other things, or for nothing at all, and it'll all go towards a really cool comics site called Comics XF.
Well, you say that they...
And all the writers.
Yes, and thanks for anybody who's helping out the site. You say that this isn't something we'd normally talk about, but it has a lot of crossover. The first issue is Wolverine guest starring with Daredevil, and they're both very interested in what is going on around Bullseye. Bullseye has been hospitalized. He's
Yeah, we need to talk about... You know why Bullseye is hospitalized, right?
Well, yes. Isn't it because Daredevil had the opportunity to kill him and didn't, but then he was still like mortally wounded, right? Isn't that what happened?
He had the opportunity to save him, is more like it. So at the end of Frank Miller's run on Daredevil, which was, that ended in February. This came out in July, that was published in February of '83. This came out in July of '83. It's a story about how you may know this, Adam. You know how Bullseye. Well, let me take this.
Okay.
Back. You know Daredevil's girlfriend, Elektra Nachios?
Yes.
She's an assassin and she wears red and she has size. Yep. Well, she's good, but baby, Bullseye, he's magic. And he kind of stabbed her pretty good.
Yes.
She died. She gets better later. Don't worry about it. But Daredevil didn't take that well. It was the start of a truly comical string of love interests of his getting brutally murdered. Like, it's not funny in the fact that fridging is a boring and overused trope that has existed to, diminish the role of women in especially genre stories like this. It is funny when you take Matt Murdock as living one discrete life and this happening that many times constantly.
Yeah, you would hope to stay as far away from this person as possible because of his track record.
Anyway, he got very mad at Bullseye and said Bullseye could save Bullseye from an opportunity, and he chose to let Bullseye fall off of like a telephone line or something.
Right.
And Bullseye broke his back. Daredevil went to the hospital with him, had a gun, and was going to play roulette with him. Just to see, like, one of us is not getting out of this, Bullseye. And then Daredevil just kind of leaves and cries, and he's very sad. And it's a good issue. Everything else about Frank Miller aside, like, and again, rightful criticism of Frank Miller for all of the very bad racism he has done, and misogyny, and all that other stuff. That issue works. So Denny O'Neil then comes in a few issues later, and he's got to follow up because that was a popular story, and people want to know what happened to Bullseye because he's not dead.
Right.
So Denny O'Neil writes this. Klaus Jensen is the penciler and inker on the first issue. Christy Shealy does the colors. The second issue, Klaus Jensen and Larry Hama does some assists on it. I believe he does some breakdowns.
Yeah, Larry Hama doing some breakdowns here. That's pretty interesting.
Lethal Larry Hama.
Man, we'll talk more about Hama in a little bit. I'm excited about this.
What I'm guessing, since this was during Hama's editorial time, they knew Larry could draw, and they knew Klaus was behind. So they said, Larry, can you break down this issue for Klaus Jensen and then let him do finishes? And he said, yeah, sure.
Freaking looks amazing. It's great. But
Larry Hama actually gets special credits in like a handful of these, I think, as essentially as a consultant, because this is a story about Japan, and
we'll talk about that.
It sure is something.
Yeah.
Larry Hama and William Johnson get pencils on the second issue here with Hama, Johnson, and in his debut. Mike Mignola He's in this one. That was weird. William Johnson and Danny Bulanati do the third issue here, and the fourth issue, with Bob Sharon doing the colors on that last one. So a wild creative team, a wild amount of stuff going on. And Wolverine is also here.
Right. So the basic premise of this arc is that there is a Japanese supervillain by the name of Lord Darkwind. Kind of looks like the 80s Cobra Commander with the like towel over his head.
He doesn't not look like Cobra Commander.
He really does.
Larry Hama, when was Cobra Commander invented?
Let's see. When is this?
1983.
1983.
1982. Okay, so no, Hama had already made Cobra Commander at this point.
That's pretty wild.
Well,
yeah, Cobra Commander, 1982.
Well, I guess Hama didn't make him as much as took a toy design, but yes.
Yeah. Well, and in fairness, there are tons of villains, who use the technique of just throwing a towel or a blanket over their head as, some easy way to disguise their face. So that's not that weird. Anyway, what's important here is that Lord Darkwind has a very, I would say, kind of complicated and also kind of stupid plan. Now, Lord Darkwing, like Darkwing Duck, Lord Darkwind, aka Kenji Oyama, is kind of the person who invented adamantium bonding, right?
Yes, which is how Wolverine is involved here. He says, "Yeah, I've heard it's one of the guys that gave me this medal is around,
right?
And I kind of want to deal with that. Also, they might be giving Bullseye some of this medal. That sounds bad."
Yeah. So Wolverine's involvement stops as soon as Bullseye is abducted by this group and brought to Japan so that he can be like metallically like reconfigured so he can go
give him a new spine, really.
Yes.
That's what Bullseye needs, is a spine.
Metal spine. And then Lord Darkwind is going to wants Bullseye to go back to the United States and assassinate somebody. And that's just very convoluted, but it does give Daredevil an excuse to go to Japan and meet Yuriko. Not to be confused with Yukio. And this Yuriko does not look anything like Lady Deathstrike whatsoever. She's just a girl with like a kanji carved into her face. And
which Lord Darkwind did to all of his children for honor-based reasons.
I guess.
Which is again the worst and most stereotypical writing of Japan, much less something that gets applied to a lot of Asian cultures, which are wild and varied. And it's kind of... This book is so 1983 with its depiction of Japan. Like, it's when people are realizing that, well, darn it, the Japanese can manufacture stuff.
Right. They're like amazed by the high-speed train, right?
Well, frankly, have you seen our rail transit system in the U.S.? I would still be amazed by a 1980s Japanese bullet train.
Probably. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. The depiction of the Japanese people, like the very first thing that happens to Daredevil when he gets off the boat is he gets mugged by a bunch of like Japanese thugs that have nothing really, I think, to do with Lord Darkwind. Later, Daredevil is able to single-handedly just defeat these like samurai warriors that have been training their entire lives to stealthily...
Daredevil does wear like an action figure samurai variant of his costume that Lady Deathstrike gives him. Yuriko at the time gives him. It's weird. I don't know. I'm not the right person equipped, but there's some stuff that doesn't feel great about this issue.
No, it's very clearly of an era, and it is, you're talking about Hama being sort of like a person who maybe
I think Hama is doing damage control. I think
Right.
Larry Hama is like, this would be the worst thing you could. Denny? Can you please? No, Denny, don't. Come on. Fine, that's fine. Give him ninja weapons, whatever. I like
Yeah.
ninja weapons. I'm Larry Hama. I love ninja weapons, but still.
Yeah, and of course, because of Miller, we already had ninjas, and a variety of different martial arts stuff come into Daredevil before. The artwork here is really cool with Klaus Janson in the beginning. I don't think it's particularly good. The Mignola issue in particular is pretty rough, where he's doing inks. The rest of it's fine.
Well, he's doing some inks. That's an issue that just has so many different people working on it.
Right. Yeah, and this stuff just looks kind of like house style. I think if you're looking to get a better picture of the origin of Lady Deathstrike, you should definitely check this out. Is it like the most classic Daredevil arc you're ever going to read? No, absolutely not. It's kind of silly, and you could probably, if you are more of a Daredevil fan, pick it up after this when Bullseye returns in issue 200, I believe. So that's probably when it gets...
I didn't read 200.
No, because it's not part of this story. Bullseye decides he's not going to do the assassination because he hasn't been paid anything, which reveals
I do love that about Bullseye.
Yeah.
I do love that about Bullseye. He's like, no, no, give me
I ain't
money.
killing anybody.
Or he's going to get cloned and driven crazy by religious fervor and murder people because of that. And that's also interesting. That's not in this story, though.
No. That's still to come. So, I love Daredevil. I enjoyed reading this.
Love Daredevil.
But is it like up to par with the best of Daredevil? No, probably not. But if you're interested
I'm a guy who in the last year has read every prominent Daredevil run up until I read through the Wade stuff, and then I took a break, and I don't want to reread the Charles Soule Daredevil run right now. It just doesn't feel good. I feel like I've got like a good working knowledge of Daredevil, of the old Hornhead.
I love Daredevil.
This
ain't that
I
great.
love Daredevil. This is fine. This is fine. I do like how Wolverine is written in this, though. I'll say that.
Oh yeah, no, he's great. He's gritty. It's like a classic Wolverine guest appearance, right? He's chomping down on us.
Exactly. It is the most Denny O'Neil is writing Wolverine that it could possibly be. And hey, Denny O'Neil could write a pretty good Wolverine. Like, that shouldn't shock anybody.
No, it's pretty fun. All right, so definitely some things to to like about this, but it's obviously not like the best thing in the world. So I'm looking a little bit lower on the list here. How do we feel about it? I know it's our bonus content today, but how do you feel about it compared to what we ranked before? Uncanny 204.
That Nightcrawler story is way better.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'm starting to go down into the 300s here.
We have one Daredevil story on the list.
We already
Here's our comparison. We have one Daredevil story on the list already. That is number 390,
right.
The Hunt for Wolverine, Weapon Lost.
I think this is better than that.
I think this is better than Weapon Lost.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
But, okay, 378 is the first appearance of Gambit, that weird story that just kind of ends.
Yep.
I think this is better than that, but I also think, like, at 339 is ROM Hybrid, and I think that ROM Space Knight is better than this.
Oh,
I think the saga of Crystar the Crystal Warrior was better than this, that one issue, and that's at 343.
Yeah, I'm looking up the list. I do think this is better than at 363 Apocalypse War from Extraordinary X-Men. But you've got highlighted Death of X at 357. I think Death of X is better than
Death
this.
of X is better. Yeah. 360, last time we did that X-Men Hellfire Nimrod stuff is better than this.
I would agree.
Probably X-Corp. This is probably better than X-Corp's Core, isn't it?
Yeah, I would agree. So that would make this our new 361.
It would make this our new 361. It's Daredevil 196 to 199, Lord Darkwind.
Kind of sounds like he's like farting or something. I don't know.
I don't know what the Dark Winds are.
I don't know.
Saying.
I don't know. Evil tubes.
But we're gonna continue our Daredevil-y adjacent crossovers. Mm-hmm. Fun fact: Daredevil will no longer appear in this Daredevil episode.
No, but some of the other characters from the Daredevil world will. And we're going to a very strange place right now. This is like right before Onslaught, and this is Feral Wolverine. Wolverine 102 to 103. And
yeah.
Who do we got here? We've got Hama writing.
Lethal Larry Hama's writing it. Mm-hmm. 202 has Adam Kubert and Dan Green and Joe Rosas.
Yep.
And 203's got Val Zemeckis, Chad Hunt, Joe Rosas with Malibu Colors doing some work there.
Yes.
Okay. We've talked about how Wolverine lost his nose for a little bit.
Yes. Because who was Apocalypse's kid?
It was Genesis.
Yeah, it was
Genesis, but not that one, but not Apocalypse's real kid. Or not any of Apocalypse's real kids.
No.
Not his clone and not his wife.
Right.
The other Genesis.
Right. Stole the adamantium. Right? Or what did he do?
Cable's kid.
He tried to put Cypher's
He put Cypher in it. He put Cyber in a tube and ate everything but the metal off of him, and then tried to put that metal into Wolverine,
and it didn't work.
Wolverine had metal again, and it didn't work, and Wolverine devolved into feral Wolverine, because Larry Hama had been writing Wolverine for so many years now and was running out of steam.
Yeah. So at this point, I believe we saw this in some panels in the Wolverine 100. Stick, for some reason, who is Daredevil's trainer, his mentor, the person that kind of like got him into ninja shape.
His Yoda.
Yeah, his Yoda has assigned Elektra to go and like rescue Wolverine from his feral state. And
like we said, Elektra will be fine. She's fine now.
Always is fine. Doesn't matter how many times she dies or resurrected by the hand or whatever.
You know, I was about to say I have no idea what Elektra is doing now, but no, I know exactly what she's doing right now. She's being Daredevil. It rules.
It's awesome. I am loving the Zdarsky run.
Matt is also being Daredevil right now, but he's in prison, not as Matt Murdock, but as Daredevil. He is now king of prison. He wears a prison jumpsuit with an orange matching Daredevil mask
because he won't take the mask off. I love it.
Because Daredevil's in prison,
right? Because he needs to pay for his crimes. It's such an interesting setup. I do love that book. You know what? I really enjoyed issue 102 here. 103 is weird. It's Elektra just doing a training session with Feral Wolverine on the top of one of the World Trade Centers, which I guess they rebuilt after Juggernaut knocked one of the towers over. And
but not that time that Doom was sad about it.
No, that obviously is before the actual real horrific event. But that issue is just not great. Like it's bland. It's just Wolverine and Elektra kind of like going back and forth for the whole issue, and it's not interesting. 102, pretty interesting technique that Hama uses here. He basically tells a silent story of Wolverine on the streets of where is this? Salem or wherever
New
in
York.
New York. And while we have Elektra telling this very interesting story of talk about a mentor, someone, this person that she thought she knew and then learned more about in Greece growing up. And I gotta say, Hama's writing here pretty top notch. I was like very sucked into Elektra's story. Now, if you're a Wolverine reader, you may not have realized who it was until the very end of the book. But if you know it's Elektra from the jump, I think it's pretty interesting.
It works really well. I think it's a story about a man who was her gardener at her father's estate named Stavros. He was a kind gentleman who had put violence behind him, but his father knew, or her father knew, excuse me, that Stavros killed a lot of Nazis in World War II. Mm-hmm. He killed a lot of Nazis in World War II, and he was good. He was good at it. But even if they are terrible, horrible Nazis, a life of violence is very difficult for a person. So he wanted to spend his life growing and gardening. And he helped teach Elektra how to do a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Now, that is paired with this silent story of feral Wolverine being mistaken for a bum at first, then getting involved in this drug deal that goes wrong with a kid that, you know, his mom assumes is just sleeping, but is actually out on the streets working with a drug dealer. And it's this weird sort of juxtaposition between these two things. I think Kubert's art really works well here, even though the feral Wolverine like just looks freaking weird, you know. But the story that's being told by Elektra, I think, is such interesting writing that, you know, you might be able to give a pass for the clunky sort of drug deal gone wrong story that's going on in the art. I don't know. I still really enjoyed this issue.
Yeah, it's a good prose Elektra story on top of a story about Wolverine. It's not even an Elektra story. It's just like Hama has a good short story he wanted to write, and then he also was still writing Wolverine.
Yeah, it feels like a fable or a myth. And yet at the same time, you're getting this, art showcase for Kubert to save, for Wolverine to save this kid. And I really enjoyed it. Now, that second issue is not good. And of course, right after this,
you have to wild.
You have to squeeze feral Wolverine into the Onslaught crossover, and it's just absolutely bonkers. And this phase of the character does not last particularly long, because even by 103. He's talking in complete sentences, just in a different font. So it's like
the one thing about this phase of the character that happens shortly afterwards is when Wolverine gets a little bit of his nose back, but instead starts running around with a blue bandana on his head.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Which kind of rules, actually. I kind of like that design, but I also like almost every bandana Age of Apocalypse design because I'm a broken man.
It's very 90s. So I don't know. I'm at a little bit of odds here as to where to put this on the list, because if we were just talking about 102, I'd be like, oh, this is actually pretty good, but 103 is not. So I don't know. I'm a little torn here about where this should go.
102 is also not like great. It's not a great comic. It's a great I don't know. It's a lot of good caption boxes unrelated to a lot of stuff, except for with the general theme of man struggling with violence.
Right. No, I'd agree. I thought it was interesting enough that like I, might want to track the floppy down at some point, because it's a unique issue. It's not your normal comic book. All right, so it's tough because like I don't think if we're taking both of these issues together that this is as good as either of the stories we've talked about so far. I don't think it's as good as that Daredevil arc, and I don't think it's as good as the Uncanny 204 either.
Okay, well, let's start with what's right above or right before it. Wolverine 100. Furnace of his mind, anvil of his soul. That is all the way down at 480.
I'm going to say I think that based on the quality of the first issue that this is better than that. but it's not by much.
Is it better than Reign of Terra?
Yeah.
That's a 440. It's better than Reign of Terra.
Oh, okay.
It's not better than Wildcats X-Men at 435.
No, it is not. But I'd say it's probably better than Days of Future Present. It's not better than An Age Undreamed Of.
It's not better than Excalibur 31.
No.
With the fake Krakoa, or Krakoa's kid.
Yeah. But and Days of Future Present does have that Art Adams issue, but it's pretty terrible as a story.
Yeah, no, actually, it is, but, Bud, I think that one Art Adams issue's art is better than Larry Hama's dialogue, or Larry Hama's captions in one issue of this.
All right, so this is going to be...
I think it's 440.
All right, I'm with you. I always go in favor of Art Adams, so... Okay.
It's a good... Listen, Hubert's a good call too, but Art Adams is Art Adams.
That is very true. Now, just as a side note, neither of those, that Daredevil arc nor those issues of Wolverine are on Marvel Unlimited right now, which is a little weird.
Really annoying.
Yeah.
I get
it. You know what is on
they should
Marvel
have
Unlimited?
Other priorities.
Yeah, let's talk about priorities.
2000... Ugh. Well, I mean, this I understand how this was on Marvel Unlimited. It was already digitized. It was very easy to drop in. They just set up the files at the same time as they set up Comixology and said, now push this out on this date. This is from 2018. It is a 3-part story arc. It's one of those weird things where it's like an annual crossover, but they aren't calling them annuals.
Nope. And
it's called Typhoid Fever.
Yeah. Typhoid Fever.
It's a Typhoid Mary story, and a weird one. It's written by Clay McLeod Chapman, and it's 3 parts: a Spider-Man issue, an X-Men issue, and an Iron Fist issue. Daredevil does not appear in this. Iron Fist, Adam, do you know why Iron Fist is in this?
I'm just guessing because it was around the time of the Netflix show. Is that why?
Yes, in something that I know none of us have watched because we love ourselves. The season 2 villain for Iron Fist was Typhoid Mary.
Right. Yeah. I've not watched it.
I've not watched it. Maybe
either season.
I have heard that season 2 of Iron Fist is better than season 1 of Iron Fist. And you know what?
That's a sliding scale.
I believe that.
That's not a that's not a scale I really want to learn about. But I'll tell you,
no.
These books are, well, before we judge the books, who is Typhoid Mary? We should probably just give a brief synopsis of who she is. She's a classic villain created by Ann Nocenti and John Romita Jr.
She's such an Ann Nocenti villain to the point that I'm not sure how many people who aren't Ann Nocenti should be writing Typhoid Mary.
I 100% agree, and there are very few Typhoid Mary stories outside of the Nocenti run that I am particularly fond of, because I don't think people quite understand what to do with her.
Because again, so I did a big Daredevil read recently. Bendis uses her.
Yep.
And he uses her to check off the box that Typhoid Mary's there. And he doesn't use her particularly well. Brubaker, I don't recall him using her. I think she's in Shadowland. Yeah, she is. She's in Shadowland, but again, it sucks. And that's it until the Zdarsky run.
I like what Zdarsky's using
doing. Her. I am not as hot on the Zdarsky run as you are. We've had this conversation off air a ton of times. Guys, we talk about other things than X-Men. We talk about other Marvel comics sometimes. It's a wild friendship we have. Yeah. I'm not as hot on it as you are, but I see it. I think it's an interesting dynamic that she has with Kingpin.
That's what I like.
But we'll see. It's just not my favorite. And I don't. She has dissociative identity disorder, and by dissociative identity disorder, I mean fictional dissociative identity disorder, where it's someone has multiple personalities, and that's all.
Right. It's not dissimilar from like Legion in that we have this superpowered person and, has...
Or Moon Knight when he's written poorly.
Right. Like, quote unquote schizo, right? And where we're at here in Typhoid Fever, in this 3-part crossover, is that Typhoid Mary has been in a mental hospital. There is a doctor that's been trying to help her. And what he ends up doing is pairing her with a random character that I had kind of forgotten about. Is a character named Amp
role.
that we met in Cena Grace's Iceman, which I had kind of forgotten about. And I think most readers...
What a wild, wild pull from that series.
Yeah, I mean, when we get to the X-Men and they're like, we've been looking for this kid. What? You were? Okay.
Listen, there's a lot of mutants. The X-Men can't do it all.
No. So Amp is amplifying Typhoid Mary's pyrokinetic and telekinetic abilities so that if anybody gets close to her, they suddenly are transported onto the set of the soap opera that Mary used to be on called Lovers and Strangers. And so you get these cutaway sequences of superheroes sort of being fooled into this. And a whole lot of nothing happens for 3 issues. And we got to talk about the art, because we go from some okay, some pretty good art, and Spider-Man I think is okay. I think the art in the Iron Man is fine. The X-Men issue
Iron
is
Fist.
What did I say? Iron Man?
You did. Don't
Yeah.
worry. They always get confused.
Yeah, sorry about that. Iron Fist art's pretty good. The X-Men issue, probably some of the worst art I have seen on a Marvel comic in ages. I mean,
Will Robson is a very stylized artist. He does the X-Men one. Stefano Landini does the Spider-Man one, and Paolo Villanelli does the Iron Fist one. Will Robson is an incredibly stylized artist. There's times where I have thought that their work worked pretty decently. They did Great Lakes Avengers, the recent-ish... I say recent, oh my gosh, that was 2016 when they did that with Zach Gorman. That I thought the art worked there because it was a cartoony, exaggerated thing, and that's his style. He's got a weird, exaggerated style, and then it's also with the super fat, what's his name? He did Silver Surfer Black. He did Ghost Rider, the Card Boy. He did Legacy of Luthor. Tradmore.
ah, okay.
He's got like those fat Tradmore lines.
He strikes me...
And it works on Spider-Ham, and it works on this, and it does not work on this, because this is a more serious story.
Yeah, this is clearly someone who grew up loving Todd McFarlane and trying to mimic the things that Todd McFarlane does with faces and body language. It does not work here. I just pulled up...
It doesn't work here. There was a Future Foundation book that came out in 2019 that was Jeremy Whitley and Will Robson, and that book had a lot of issues. One of the issues was the art was really atrocious and a bad fit.
Yeah. Another thing that's really weird about the X-Men issue is that Will Robson's art is paired with Danilo S. Beyruth. So when they go into the dream sequences, the soap opera fantasy sequences, the art switches. But at the end of the issue, it switches again for no reason. They're not in a fantasy sequence. So even the
that
idea...
reason is called scheduling.
Yeah. Well, and each of these is slightly oversized to a certain extent. These aren't just 22 pagers.
They're $4.99 Marvel comics, not
Right.
$3.99 Marvel comics.
But nothing happens. Nothing happens. The content of this story is Typhoid Mary attacks the High Line, and they stop her, and then she ends up in a church at the end of this, which is, I guess, where Zdarsky kind of picks up, right? Because she
it's weird. Chapman opens this with people with Typhoid Mary talking about how men writing soap operas don't understand women and don't understand how to write women, and a big kind of soapboxy thing on that. And he's not wrong, but also what a wild thing as a dude to be writing about a female character and say, no, all these men do it wrong. I'm going to do it right. I understand that the words of a character are not the exact thoughts and feelings of an artist, but we all know when sometimes things feel like they're a little more pointed than they are, especially when it's the text or the subtext the story is also trying to get across.
Yeah. It's not that the sort of like trick of the soap opera cutaways is a bad one. It's just that it's not interesting. And
it's not. They don't. The thing about soap operas, there are two things. One, they are dirt cheap to make.
Right.
That's the reason why they were able to be daily, or a low column A, low column B. They are daily because they are cheap to make. They are cheap to make because they are daily. Mm-hmm. So they are mostly the same sets, the same people having a conversation, low action by design. Mm-hmm. They are character pieces. But we don't spend enough time with any individual characters to care about them. We know that this is an alternate reality, so even if there's weird things like, you remember the time how right here at this time there was a lot of push about maybe Jean and Bishop would be a couple, and then they did in Age of X-Men, and that gets brought up here, but then Bishop's also cheating on Jean with Storm, or Storm with Jean, and that makes it messier and gross and falling into some tropes that aren't great. And it's like, it doesn't do anything interesting with the premise, and also it's kind of a flimsy premise because these are superhero stories, and superhero stories are, especially X-Men, also have a lot of soap opera-y elements and the weird like high concept character drama. So it's not being incredibly additive. It's just a superhero story without the superhero parts.
Yeah. And the choice of the characters that are included here are just bizarre. There is no real reason that Spider-Man, Iron Fist, and, X-Men Red or some version of that team are here. It's just weird. And I think that the writing of the characters is not really particularly strong either. You don't get a strong idea of this being Spider-Man or Jean Grey. His Iron Fist is okay, but it's all just very bland. So I would highly recommend people skip this one. I don't think it's very good. In fact, with the X-Men issue in particular, I think it's pretty dang bad.
Yeah, Chapman is a writer that is getting a lot of play in the Spider-Man office right now. Did a series called Scream, Curse of Carnage, which I didn't read because Scream, this is the second Scream.
Okay.
Who's a Venom spinoff with the symbiote from a Carnage spinoff, Scream. All of which is a Spider-Man spinoff, and it's like, y'all, I like Spider-Man. This is too far removed from me. Like, I don't even like Venom that much. You cannot push that many levels deep of symbiotes and me still be like that invested in it from a character standpoint. He did an Iron Fist story where Iron Fist lost his hands, which was weird. And I don't mean like he broke them like Doctor Strange. Like, he lost his physical hands for a while. Just not my jam. He does a lot of symbiote stuff. Probably a nice guy.
Okay.
This is, he's not a writer that I see on a book and I'm very excited about.
No. So, I'm going to be bold here. I think we're down in the 500s, because there's not much.
Well, what's 500 at this juncture? Phoenix End, this is worse than Phoenix End song.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm just looking down this list and I think Eve of Destruction is better than this.
That's right. We are right there. Adam, would you rather read this or Axis?
Okay, there's not much I would...
See, hold on. I get it. This is still, like, this is... I would say this
I'm
is
gonna say this
pretty
is,
close to, like...
This is worse than Axis. Here's why.
I'm listening, but that's a wild sentence.
You know I hate Axis. It's one of my, if not my least favorite, one of my least favorite Marvel crossovers of all time, right? However, there is actually some pretty okay art in there, right? Like there's some nice...
I actually disagree with that. I think Axis is an incredible rush job of art, and the only person who ends up looking good is Jim Chung in the last issue.
Okay. I don't know.
I know we talked about that.
Yeah, the Kubert stuff is it's terrible in that too. So
the U stuff is pretty rushed. The Dodson's issue is a freaking mess.
All right, well, okay, you've sold me. All right, so we'll put this above Axis, but it can't go much higher. You know what I mean?
It's not much higher. I think at 509 right now we have Sacred Vows from Uncanny X-Men. That's Polaris and Havoc's Bad Wedding.
Oh, that one's rough.
I would say that this is better than their Bad Wedding, but worse than the unofficial, official, non-canonical prequel tie-in to X-Men Legends 2 Rise of Apocalypse.
I love that. All right, so this is going to be our new 509.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has to. Our new 509 is Typhoid Fever.
Oh, man, skip that one. That's no good.
Y'all go read the Innocenti John Romita Jr. Daredevil.
I'm collecting the floppies right now.
I can't explain it.
Yeah, I'm putting the run together. I'm really excited about it.
Well, folks, that was a bonus-sized episode of our Daredevil podcast, the Hornheaders. If you wanna support us, just go on over to patreon.com/comicsxf, just like Marty did. Thank you, Marty. We truly appreciate your patronage. It keeps Comics XF running. We've had some really great stuff recently. There's some really cool interviews, good pieces. It's good. My mind's blanking on what we have going on right now, so I'm gonna skip that. Adam, what's going on with you?
Guys, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. And Zach, what do we got going on next week?
Oh, beans! I closed it out. Adam, what do we have going on next week?
Next week we have an all Wolverine episode, and let's just say that maybe he is not so happy with the state.
Well, I mean, yeah, I get that. Wolverine's an anarchist. He doesn't trust the government. He's a strong libertarian man, and he believes in being a real man, and he just doesn't think the state is doing it, and people who are relying on the state are his enemy. That's what's happening, right?
All you had to do, Zach, was say, "I hope you survived the experience."
And yet, we'll see you guys next week. Take care. This has been Valley. We hope you survived the experience. Dang it. Hold on. I can't.
Get it!